Welcome to the How to Play video for Bullfrogs. Bullfrogs is played over a series of turns where players battle for lily pads by deploying, sabotaging, and jumping units on an ever-changing battlefield. To set up the game, place the 5 starting cards in a cross formation with the log card in the center. Each player has a player aid card, a draw deck made up of lily pad cards, frogs, and bullfrogs, which are the commanders of the army. Before the game begins, each player shuffles their draw deck and draws 3 cards. Let's take a look at how a turn is played. First, I play a card from my hand so that it's adjacent to another card. For example, these would all be valid options. In Bullfrogs, diagonal positioning is never considered adjacent. Let's take a quick look at a lily pad card. In the upper left-hand corner is a lily pad icon, which indicates how many actions the player can take during their turn. The center of the card has spaces where frogs and bullfrogs can be placed. And the number in the lower right-hand corner indicates how many victory points the card is worth. Back in our example, the card I placed has 3 lily pads in the icon, so I get 3 actions. There are 2 types of actions to choose from: deploy and sabotage. To deploy, a player places a frog or bullfrog on any card in the same row or column as the card played, with the exception that you cannot deploy on the card that was just played. For example, I can deploy a frog here for my first action, and here for my second action, but no more than 2 units can be deployed to a single card in one turn. So, for my third action, I deploy a frog here. Instead of deploying, I can always use my actions to foil my opponent's plans by taking a sabotage action. To sabotage, a player moves an opponent's frog from any card in the same row or column as the card played to an adjacent card. In this example, I choose to sabotage my opponent's frog on this card and move it here for my first action. Then with my second and third actions, I deploy on this card. One more note on the sabotage action. Bullfrogs are the mightiest of the army's warriors, and thus cannot be sabotaged. If after taking actions, all the spaces on a card are full, like this one I just played on, then it must be scored. First, count the strength of each player's frogs and bullfrogs on the card. Frogs count for 1, bullfrogs count for 2. The player with the highest strength wins the battle. In our example, I have a strength of 4, yellow has a strength of 3, and blue has a strength of 1. So with a strength of 4, I win this battle. But before I collect the spoils of my victory, I must first jump frogs and bullfrogs off of the sinking lily pad. The active player jumps 1 frog or bullfrog to each adjacent card, so at most there will be 4 units jumping. The active player must jump the losing player's frogs first, then the losing player's bullfrogs, then the winner's frogs, and finally the winner's bullfrogs. Any remaining frogs are returned to their player, while any remaining bullfrogs are removed from the game. Back to our example, I'm the active player, so following the jumping priority, I choose to jump the yellow player's frog here, and the blue player's frog here. Next, I have to jump the yellow bullfrog, so I jump him to this card. I can now jump one of my frogs to the last adjacent card. My remaining frog is returned to me, and I place the remaining bullfrog on my player aid card to indicate that it is now out of the game. Now I remove the card from the table and place it in my play area to form a score pile. Jumping can cause other cards to score. If so, repeat the process for each full card. Once scoring is complete, there may be lily pads that are disconnected from the group of cards that include the log. Any cards that are not adjacent to this group must be slid one at a time by the active player until all cards are adjacent. When sliding lily pad cards, they may reconnect anywhere to this group. Here, there are 2 lily pad cards disconnected from the group. I slide this card here, and then I slide this one here. Now that sliding is complete, I draw a card from my draw deck and my turn is finished. Play continues until all cards have been played and the last turn is complete. Once the game is over, each player adds up the victory points from the cards in their score pile. Each card of the player's color is worth 1 additional point. Next, score the log card. Each frog on the log card is worth 1 victory point, and each bullfrog is worth 2. The player with the highest strength on the log card has won a key battle, and earns an additional 3 points. Here, I have 8 cards in my score pile, adding up to 36 victory points. I have 4 green cards, so I get 4 additional points, bringing me to 40. Looking at the log card, I have 3 frogs and 1 bullfrog. These are worth 5 points, giving me 45. I also have the highest strength on the log card, so I earn an additional 3 points, bringing my final score to 48. The player with the most victory points wins the game. And that is how to play Bullfrogs. Thanks for watching.